as a recruiter, we're constantly asked the best way to navigate pay rises in those discussions. So Sam King and I are going to be sitting down today and sharing our expertise in this space. If you're after a pay rise this year or in 2026, this will be a great listen for you. We hope you enjoy it.
You're listening to the West Tech Podcast, powered by West Recruitment.
Let's go! Yes, check the West Tech Podcast.
So welcome back to the West Tech Podcast. Today we're doing an episode. I'm sitting down here with my main guy, Sam King. We're going to be talking about how to ask for a pay rise, which is something we get asked quite a lot in this line of work, Sam.
Very often.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought we'd touch on some points and maybe, discuss or break it down what the process is and how to navigate that, and hopefully at the end of the day come out with a result that's in your favour.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe some practical takeaways at the end or something that we can give to people. And obviously going into the new year, it's could be a good one.
You tend to find a lot of people are coming back from Christmas, which is an expensive time of year, and they're probably starting to think about what their plans are career-wise, if they're sticking around or if they're compensated correctly. Yeah. So there's a couple of times a year people tend to ask for pay rises, which is generally around sort of reviews, performance reviews. Yeah. Recognition of business results. Yeah. Annually they might be coming up to work anniversary, and they're like, okay, now might be a good time. Yeah. Yeah. There might be a lot of changes.
Well, that's good. Well, maybe that leads us on to the first point, like the timing and when to ask. Is that good? Is that a good thing to kick on with? So what's the right answer? What's the wrong answer? When do you ask?
Are you asking when the best time is to ask for a pay rise?
What about the worst time?
Okay.
That's always fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I think you're always going to have much more success if you ask after the back of a successful performance review, or where you've delivered something that was over and above your role. Yeah. And you're getting accolades for that. Oh, thanks very much. Well, it's having that discussion.
A couple of wins on the board, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're you're definitely on top of your role. You're not on underperformance management or anything like that.
I was going to give you a real life example. This is actually true. I managed someone a few years ago, and we had to put that person, so funny, we had to put them on a performance review, and that person thought that was a good time to go, oh, by the way, I think I deserve a pay rise. And it's quite hard not to laugh. Yeah. It's a true story. Yeah.
Couldn't read the room well. But you tend to find if you're struggling to keep your job, then's not the right time to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
On the back of your performance. So to break it down, I think there's a couple of key points, and just to surmise those, I think before you do that, build a business case as to why. Yeah. It's not just it's a feeling or it's a motive. It's okay, well, I believe I deserve more, and substantiate that with some facts and data. So build your business case, get your timing right. Make an engaging process. You're not going to get one every time you ask. Yeah. Generally. So I think, as long as you can take away things, feedback, critical, okay, well, for me to get to that next level or to justify that, what does that look like in this organisation?
Well, that's putting your commercial hat on, which, if you feel that you're in a position to be asking for a pay rise, you want to be wearing that, you would be having that commercial hat on anyway. But that the preparation links up to the timing piece, because if you have got those wins on the board, what you're doing is you're systematically presenting something where you're reducing the risk of them to say no, basically, because you're showing your worth. And the timing shouldn't be, because you reference, the break for Christmas and December, the holidays, where people start to think about, people typically spend more money and have less, and then maybe their brain kicks into, that's not the reason to ask for more money, just because you may have spent more over a certain amount of time.
Oh, absolutely. But you'd be surprised.
But people get it wrong.
People absolutely do that all the time. They ask for more. Oh, okay, well, my mortgage repayment's gone up, so, I need a pay rise. Well, that's not really the business's. No. What you do with your money is your business. Yeah. I think what you need to keep in mind is, am I properly compensated for the role that I'm doing in line with this organisation and the wider market? Yeah. And I think that's not an emotional thing. That's not, I've got myself in a financial distress thing. Yeah. This is, am I being properly compensated for what I do? And I think if you keep it factual and the discussion around that and less emotive, then I think you're probably going to have...
Yeah, you have to leave emotion at the door, which it sounds like common sense, but that will be the differentiator between someone like listening to you or it just going through deaf ears in the sense, because it literally has nothing to do with that.
I totally understand why it would be daunting too. It's not an easy thing to ask for a salary. increase. So it's one of the more daunting things, along with going through an interview process or things like that. So I think, it's not something you do all the time, I think, but if you approach it systematically and with facts, I think, you're probably putting yourself in better stead to get the result you're after.
You are. And the other thing that people get wrong is just expecting managers to notice. Like, they should just notice. So absolutely, if you're in a good role where the communication line is strong, which, fingers crossed it would be in a great business. Unfortunately, we know in our line of work there are countless, probably more than not, where it's not the case. So don't rely or depend on the fact that they should just notice and put it out. Hence, you're putting your business case together. Hence, you're planning the meeting ahead of that so that you can demonstrate your wins on the board as well, whatever that looks like.
Well, like your own career, I think you need to drive it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
I think that's probably the best mindset to take into this.
Yeah.
So I think, to sort of cover off, I think building a business case, that would involve assembling a list, a bit of a brag sheet, if you will, of your wins, things you've done over and above your job.
Yeah.
I've done my job, but I've been up every day is probably not enough to suffice.
No, that's what you're paid for.
Correct. That's your appearance fee. That's what you're there for. That's the bare minimum. That's your standard. So I'm meeting expectations. I think you really need to go in with this is how I've exceeded the expectations of what's regarded in my role. I've taken on more responsibilities, whether that's leadership or tasks or worked in different areas, or how has your role sort of changed and evolved? And I think if it has, that's a really, really good leverage point to go in and say, well, look, the reason I'm asking for this is my role has actually grown and evolved.
Yeah.
I'm doing more. I'm responsible for more. I'm working at a higher level. Hence, I want to be compensated.
Yeah. The key word there is evolve, I think, as well. And you can frame that from your sort of personal perspective, but you can also frame it against what your KPIs or deliverables have been set from your previous review.
Absolutely. I think the other side of it is if you've done anything for the business over and above that saved the company money or
improved,
so you've improved the process at the same time. Save money. These are the wins that, matter to businesses, and you hope that, they're recognised. But I mean, if you were able to list them, then, you can sort of say, well, black and white, well, this is what I've done over and above. And this is, some people have the mindset that you do need to change jobs or leave the business to get a pay increase. And look, in some organisations that might be true.
Yeah.
But why don't you ask?
Well, it's funny you say that, because we come across that all the time. And one of the things that we do with our role is like the counter offer from your existing company. So maybe someone is about to take a job, then they hand in their notice. And so my rebuttal to that, which again should be common sense, but I don't know, people get sucked in by it because you're eye to eye with someone and you've got personal relationships. But why would you have to be in a business? Like, why do you want to work for a business where you have to hand in your notice to get a pay rise? That's not a good and you still want to be there. And where's that coming from as well? Like the desperation and the and it's cheaper to keep you and give you that pay rise than it is to go through the whole hiring process again. So can you not see that that's the obvious thing that's happening, especially in our world, which is technology, which is skill shortages and specialist verticals and things. So that's quite interesting you say that, actually. But yeah, to your point, you shouldn't want to be in a business where you're sort of having to hand in your notice to do that. So just have the chat and see where you're at. Yeah.
How many times have you had it though that when someone says I've asked for a pay rise, they said no, can't do it, never going to happen. They resigned and they find that money.
Yeah, all the time.
The time.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, that was funny. That's another thing, because it's also going into the meeting or the conversation, speaking the company language, because every business would do it differently. So big corporates of X amount of tens of thousands of people obviously have a system, obviously have a grading, and there will be, I would imagine, like quite thorough loopholes or systems to go through. Whereas, you might be in a small business or a medium-sized business where the language that you need to approach it is very different than the language you need to approach something else. Hopefully, if you're asking for a pay rise, you've probably been there a certain amount of time that you would know that by now as well. Otherwise, what's going on. So you'd think that you'd be singing from the same hymn sheet with that. But knowing what sort of language, what's the business language, will probably curry favour because of the, you're embedded into how the business talks to each other, even when you're not there. So it might create that level of understanding a bit more as well. For example, you're not going in all sort of formal and corporate. If you're a five person band, but at the same time you're not sort of keeping it loose. You're not doing it over Christmas beers if you work for one of the big major bank sort of thing, and you're catching people off guard as well. So yeah, just sort of reading the room in that sense as well would be.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, doing it the formal way, formal channels, asking for the time, sitting down, make it on company time. So you built your business case, you got your list together as to why you believe you need a pay rise. I think the other side of it too is from an education standpoint is to do your research.
Yep.
When I say do your research, find out, am I properly compensated in the market? So you might want to have a look on job boards and see if similar roles are advertised, what they're paying. If they know a good recruiter, just call and say, hey, this is my salary, this is my package at the moment. How does it sort of compare with what the market's doing? Because like everything, a commodity, skills are commodity. They fluctuate. They could be in demand. They could be in decline. How many times are people going, well, I want a really good pay increase? You go, well, actually, if they got rid of you, they'd be refilling your role at less. So you don't want the business to be doing that, but just be mindful as the fact that,
There's a couple of talking points there. One is about using recruitment consultants. Obviously, that's what we do for a living. So we're obviously going to promote that, but that's why it's worthwhile keeping in touch. So you can leverage off of our experience and market knowledge to have a chat. Just every time you talk to us doesn't necessarily mean you're just looking for a job. In fact, it's quite the opposite of that. It's the building a relationship, the trust for this type of scenario. The other thing there is about, well, actually, if you left people might be overpaid and they don't realise it. That happens quite a lot. Where our advice is, do you know what? You might be better off staying put. You're in a good position. But I do see people who jump very quickly, dare I say too quickly. I'm very cautious about how I position this, but I suppose this comes to how often you ask for a pay rise, because you could get in the trap of the golden handcuff.
Once a month.
Yeah. It might be too much. Not that I would discourage people to do it, obviously, because that's what we're talking about. But yeah, just something to think about, actually, that it's quite interesting.
Yeah, but, I mean, understanding where you sit in the market.
Yeah.
And you know, where your skills lie.
Also, no research. Yeah.
The other thing I think is too, when you're sitting down and doing your sums, is look at the non-financial benefits as well as some of the extra benefits that you might get. So you might be eligible for a bonus program that's paid out quite regularly.
Yeah.
You might go, I want a higher base salary, over but you've got to factor in, you're still earning a bonus every year. You might have healthcare, you might have gym memberships, you might have flexi days off, days in lieu. Might have other extracurricular things that you might be able to get, like racing and
So just double check all of the additional
factor that in, so you know exactly what you're after. The other thing about doing your research is figure out what you want. Like, what are you asking for? Like, that might go, I want a pay rise. Like, okay, well, how much? 50% or 5K, $30 a week? Or what do we? What is it and how? And how did you arrive at that? So rather than just go, I want X because it's what I feel I'm worth, the honest reflex response to that would be, how did you arrive at that number?
Yeah.
And sometimes your boss might go, well, actually, I think you're worth probably a bit more than that. Let's look at it at this. Whereas it's not an arm wrestle or a negotiation in every instance, but it might be, hey, I've done my research. I'm underpaid in terms of this.
Yeah.
I want to be kept up in line with market. I've taken on more responsibilities. I believe I'm worth X.
Yeah.
Business will go, okay, I understand that's.
Yeah.
That's where it is. They might even by their own reckon go, you know what, we'd probably have a look at your salary in a while.
Yeah, if they're anything worth their salt, they will. That's the response. And it might not necessarily be a yes. Hopefully it would be if everything else comes into play. But it's a then you're having a conversation about each other, about value from both sides as well. But it's funny to say about research, because what's your take on just going around the office ad hoc and what are you on?
Well, that was funny. I've got a list here of things I think, you should avoid. And that was probably the top of that, is never ask your colleagues what they earn. Because, if you want to really throw the cat amongst the pigeons, and management won't be like super keen to give you a pay rise after you've called.
Not if you've been going around.
It's paid resignations.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it's funny because obviously you're going to have friends in the business. That those chats might have. But as protocol, yeah, absolutely. You're not really.
And decorum and etiquette, because people aren't comfortable talking about that. That's just not something you do.
No, it's not. But the job, it's written job boards. It's talked about recruitment consultants, Glassdoor, those sorts of forums and stuff. It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to find out where you're at.
You're listening to West Talks Tech, where we give you a recruiter's insights into our world, with the aim of helping you reach your career or hiring goals. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.
Check the West Tech Podcast.
think, so once you've done your research, you've built your business case, you've timed the right time to ask, so you've asked for a formal sit down.
Yeah.
In terms of presenting that information, the conversation I think is pretty straightforward if you can substantiate that.
Yeah.
I think now the next thing is obviously in terms of tips, like, number one, don't get emotional.
Yep.
Leave that at the door, as we sort of covered off early on.
Yeah.
Be professional at all times. Now, in terms of the responses, and this is the other side, it's very easy to ask for it. Like, okay, leave it with me. What you maybe want to do is a tip or a hint would be to go, okay, this is what I'm after. When do you think I'd be able to have a response by?
Yeah.
What would that look like? How long? Who do you need to speak to? Do I need to speak to them? And really have that formal line of, okay, so I'm after an outcome. Sometimes people have these discussions and they're too afraid to follow up, and it just goes into the breeze, and all that stress and egg without even a result.
We see that all the time.
A lot, yeah. So I'd definitely ask for an outcome, and almost definitely a timeline, and say, okay, so by so and so I should know. Great, fantastic. In my mind, that's where it is. Also, too, don't bug them again until that timeline's up.
Yeah.
Don't every day, hey, how'd you go? Hey, how'd you go? That would just be annoying. I think you really need to just keep doing your thing, and then just follow up and say, hey, I was meant to have a result by now. What's happening with that?
And also, at the end of the meeting, is there anything more you need from me at this stage? It's a very, very easy question, but it's like you're literally closing, there's your corridor, you're closing every door for questions, and you're thinking, well, actually, have I missed anything here? Have they missed anything? Is there anything we haven't talked about? Is there anything more you need?
And expectations on both sides. Like, feedback's a gift. They might go, look, we'd love to pay you this, but you haven't mastered this part of your role. So if you could get to that, then I think that's definitely worth sitting down and having the chat. And I think that comes back into the responses, whether you get it at the time or down the track. How do you manage those responses? So if it's a no, you're not going to throw your toys and, run out.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is, okay, look, I appreciate you letting me know. Can you help me understand as to what areas I need to improve to be able to get to this?
That's it.
And he might say, well, no, Sam, you're doing a fantastic job. It's not that. It's just that the business doesn't have that allocation, so we don't have the budget for that. Okay, is that for everything, or is that until a certain period of time? And it gives you the information to make a decision about your own career, because you will never pay that role for that much for that role.
Yeah.
That's all I need to hear.
Yeah, you're working backwards from the yes, basically, and the answers will be yes, no, maybe, and most of the time it will be maybe, from what I see, and it will be we'll come back to you, and that's exactly to your point as to why you need to have to diarise the follow-ups and the catch-ups and things like that. With the hard no, that's an interesting one, because that's so dependent on that's probably, if it is a hard no, it suggests that it's external forces are at play which are out beyond your control. So or the business is going down, or whatever, a budget, anything like that, bad press, all these sorts of things. Yeah,
I mean, sometimes I've seen really good people and really good performers not get recognised and commensurated properly, because the person, or they might be in a team of 3 or 4 that maybe aren't at that level, but they're all on the same amount. So to put the business's mind, to put someone on more money would cause chaos, or go, we'll leave the other 3. Where I think the more progressive business are more like, no, you're doing a fantastic job. We don't want to leave you. Here's what we think you're worth, and let's work with that.
Yeah. What's interesting is talking about the, why you and why not someone else, or why you and above and beyond and things like that. We might all have the same job titles, and they're in them. I think people go in and just assuming because that person is the same job title that you're doing the same role, and that might be the case depending on the business. But just remember, there's been a process to hire that person, and everyone's got different backgrounds, experience, depth, breadth, all that sort of thing. So just because, even once you've done your research, just because that person is on X, Y, and Z doesn't mean that you should automatically just because we know this because we've CVs and interview people. So, it might be, I'm just thinking of something, it might be certifications or academia, or it just might be that they've got more relevant industries. Those things do come into play with that sort of thing, and just be conscious that you really need to put your commercial hat on when don't just assume that you're going to get just because.
I think I'm doing a great job. Okay. I think there needs to be some agreements around that in a few other areas. Yeah. So, I mean, getting a maybe, you're right, that's probably the most ambiguous. I think what you want to do is try and pull some clarity out of that.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I understand it's maybe a not now, or we're still unsure. What do we need to do to make it a yes? And they might say, well, we don't really know. It's like, okay, there's another meeting.
Yeah.
Why is it not that obvious?
Yeah.
Why is it they might not be able to tell you straight away? They might go, well, look, we feel that, there's certain areas where this department's not actually. Okay, well, look, bringing it back to my role, what about my performance, and how does that look? You know, when can we maybe qualify or reschedule this discussion? If it's not a yes now, it's not a no, then maybe is it 3 months we need to revisit this? Is it 6? And then obviously commit to a timeline around that. So, obviously if it is a yes as well, again, I think with a yes, it'll be fantastic. Am I able to get that in writing? When does it kick off? Really appreciate your time. Obviously, great outcome, the desired outcome. If it's a straight out no, again, feedback is a gift. What are the measurables? Where do you need to be? And then almost the onus is back on business. Well, how long do you think it would be if I was to master and get on top of the role the way that you would expect? What would that look like and how long? And who is the person that's going to recognise that? Do I have to bring it back up again, or are you going to come to me and say, okay, you meet these hard and fast metrics that are measurable? Then we can sit down and have that discussion. So at least you've got some clarity as to where you're headed.
Exactly. And then depending on that answer is when is when you have a decision to make, or when there's another conversation. Either you sit back, self-reflect, or you've actually put something good with action points to get there as well. So
right. So I think we've covered off. You build your case, you do your research. As part of the business case, you go and sit in front of them. You formally ask. You do it in a way that's not emotional. You know what you want to achieve, so you go in with a clear mindset of, okay, this is what I'm after. This would make this is my ultimate goal. This is what I think I'm worth. The responses, we know how we're going to tackle those responses. What are the things you can avoid? And I think we sort of touched on those, but I think we can have some fun with this one.
There's loads. I think the most obvious one is being entitled. It's entitled, and it's just because, and it's just because, and it's not really knowing in your own mind. And I think that normally comes from a lack of emotional intelligence or self-awareness, really. So that all just comes back to knowing what you've done and having your role. But I think so.
That asked at the end of the poor performance review, I actually want a pay increase.
Exactly.
I think that is that EI that you talk.
But there's a fine line between that and confidence, because I think you do need the confidence to do it, and it should be a skill that's perhaps taught in other channels. But it's confidence and knowing your worth versus the self-entitlement are two very different things. So I think the just because with no sort of reasoning is a bit of a flag.
I just feel that I'm worth it.
I just
never gonna.
And we have those chats with people. So I say, how did you arrive at that number? Well, I feel I'm worth it. Why?
Feelings aren't, you can't measure those. But I think the other thing is tenure. Some people, the old school thought was, well, I've been here 10 years, so I'm worth more than the person who's been here doing the same job for 5. And well, I think we challenge that mindset now that businesses are like, well, no, you can be doing something for 20 years and be mediocre at it. You could come in after a year and shoot the lights out. Who do you think? As an employer, who would you want to hire? You're not the superstar, right? They're going to command the premium, not the person that's just because, I've been here for so and so and I'm loyal, so I deserve this. Go, well, that's fantastic, and I think that's very noble, but I think that's not enough to command more money. It's because you've been doing the job for longer. I think that mindset now is very old school. So I think in terms of other things to avoid, asking your colleagues what they earn is extremely poor form. I think that's fraught with danger.
But it's even if you do, because you've got a close relationship with them, you don't bring that to the meeting.
No. I think that the biggest one for me, though, is bringing your personal situation into the discussion. And the company performance was probably the last point that I've written down. The company's doing really badly. Everyone's struggling to stay afloat. They've trimmed the belt. They're making redundancies. And someone walks in and goes, I want more money because I think I'm worth it and I got caught. Straight away, I think that might be... Look, I'm not saying if you're underpaid, don't raise that discussion. But be mindful of how you do that, because, again, I think that's the EI part. The emotional intelligence, I think, of reading the room. So I think if you're going with that mindset of hey, I acknowledge the business is going through some tough times. Is it possible or not? I think I'm worth. It's like, would it be possible to get my pay up to a certain amount? Is it feasible? Is it something that's going to be workable or manageable? And you'll find out. So I'm not saying it's a hard no all the time, because again, the way the business runs isn't necessarily the employee's decision straight away. But I think definitely be mindful of that. So avoid probably hey, we're going to administration. Can I just see you I just want to ask for more money over here? They're going to go no straight away. It's you're set up for failure.
From our point of view, I've highlighted a note I made before here is why would there be a reason for someone to say no, even if the performance has been really, really strong? So basically, ulterior reasons as to why they were pushed back. And the reason I bring this up is because I remember I worked with someone who was basically the top biller in a recruiting business, and they got turned down for promotion and pay rise, and it was because they weren't doing the so our KPIs are potentially, if you're in any sales environment, they're going to be driven by that potentially predominantly, but all of the other factors and the softer KPIs just weren't that in any way, and they left. Actually, yeah. So it was just interesting to see that in a business that is potentially like you've got sales targets and those have been exceeded to the point where they were the best performer. They still got turned down, and other people did get promoted and stuff as well. But there's a cultural fit, things that maybe not adhering to values, stuff like that. I just wondered if that was a thing to think about as well.
From an employer, like you've got to put both hats on. From an employer standpoint, you're not going to promote someone that they might be a top performer, but they might be toxic.
Yeah, that was it.
Or, you know what I mean? They might be great performance-wise, but you can't build your business around that behaviour because if you walk past it, you accept it.
Yeah.
So I think the road there would be coaching back into being more of a team player. Some people just go, it's not for me. I don't operate like that. Moved on. Yeah, it hurts the business in the short term because they're missing out a huge chunk of revenue. It probably gained a new competitor. However, picking up people as well, like other people, everyone else lift because they're in an environment where they promote certain behaviours and they stand behind those.
Yeah.
So I think, there's a few different schools of thought there. But,
anyway,
I think if someone's exceeding their operational output, but maybe they're lacking in a few, I would hate to think that a lot of businesses would use, okay, you've done really, really well. Here's the 85% you've done well. Here's the 15% you're not really doing well, and that's why we're not. Do you know what I mean? I think that's from an employer's standpoint. I know as an employer, I'd be going, wow, okay, so from all the hard work, you're going to focus on a couple of things I missed, then, again, and I have to arm wrestle out too hard. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
So then there's a retention discussion around that as well. But so I think, I think we've covered off everything I've got to say about this. But so build a business case, do your research. Do it in a formal setting, not over beers, not catching people off guard. When you set the meeting, let them know what it's about. I would think, organised timelines.
Yep.
In terms of outcome. The feedback is a gift. Ask for the feedback as to the direction as to how, why, and what, where, and when.
Yeah.
For you to reach your goals. If not now, then down the track. Avoid those few things. And I think it should be standing in good stead.
Good to go. Yeah.
All right. Sam, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And
next one.
Yeah, same, exactly. And probably just worth putting out there that obviously Dean and I are always here for exactly these types of conversations. So you know where we are to have these chats.
Absolutely. If you are in technology and you want to ask for a pay increase and you're not sure, or you want to unpack anything or get market intel, we are absolutely more than happy to take your questions.
We are. Pleasure.
Wait, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers, mate.
We hope you enjoyed our discussion today. If you like what you hear, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Check the West Tech Podcast. Let's go! Yes, check the West Tech Podcast. Let's get the next guest on fast. Yes, check the West Tech Podcast. Let's get the next guest on fast. It's a specialist recruitment that you chose the best. There's been evidence to prove it because they know the West. From the map of Parramatta, that's their home address. It's a platform where you chat about your own success. To keep a promise is a must. Speaking honest, keeping trust. Being modest, we discuss. People want it, we adjust. It's all genuine, real, share and then feel. West Tech connects, respects ideals. You need the right team, the right piece, and we can find leads like these. We keep it timely and high speed. Keep up with IT and life's needs. So if it's candid conversation with a chat, or expanded information to unpack, the brand is contemplation, it's a fact. At West Tech can tell you where it's at. Let's go! Yes, check the West Tech Podcast. Let's get the next guest on fast. Yes, check the West Tech Podcast. Let's get the next guest on fast. Yes, check the West Tech Podcast.